And there we go, the end of Banner Saga 3. And the end of the Banner Saga. So I think the last couple of sessions I've kind of vented a few of my complaints. No, actually, towards this end, actually, it's only really been apparent here. Maybe it's just they wanted to make it a lot harder going through that the inner earth. But yeah, I wasn't. There were a few choices that seemed to be similar choices to ones you have to make in previous games, but with the opposite result. Like with Volker, there was, I think there was one in Banner Saga 2, a choice where the logic would seem to be to, is that it for the credits? I've gone through everything. Where if you interrupt, which seems to be the logical thing, you distract people, and that means that they end up failing. And then with Volker, it was the other way around, and there were credits, but there's still plot. I'm meant to be giving my review of this game. Right, well, we'll keep going. Maybe something will change my mind on a few things. I doubt it. It's almost hard to believe they really did it. Whatever it is. But the sun's actually moving again. For a long time, things were looking pretty hopeless. The gods are dead. The world turned to dust. Still we survive. Some of us, at least. What now? Time passes. Life will return. Grass and green will sprout from the dust. I believe there are other survivors. Val in the north, perhaps huddled around godstones. South of the darkness there may still be horseborn fleeing across the fields, or ships of men, or dredge without Sundra. So we rebuild. I just wish my dad could have been here to see this. I know how proud he'd be. For a long time now I've been thinking of an epic poem. You'll never guess the inspiration. Would you care to hear what I've got? Seems like an ideal moment. Aleo smiles and draws his lute from around his back. He sings with a brightness in his voice. Only the sun has stopped, cut with keen-edged sword. Little did they sleep, lest they not come home. Weary the weight of the sun, of our bones the hills, the slayer and the slain. From their homes must all flee, and cast their home into the air. To speak in all tongues where a foe may lurk, the destined day shall come. The fetters will burst, brothers fight, kinships stain, and in fear quake all. The true hero comes reluctantly, raising high their shining light. Alas, the sea is still dead and wide, the hounds are a-hungered. We live as we will live, with the mighty grief that was ours and theirs. Only we few remember it now. Aleo gives a little cough to indicate he's done. It's not bad. A little bleak, maybe. Could use a couple more verses at the end there. Aleo laughs. Ah, you're right, it certainly could. Wait, what is that? Do you see it? You squint into the ashes of twisted land, spread out across the horizon. Oddleaf's right. Something there is moving. It looks like a line of people, and at the front. Is that Ivor? Dredge lover. Are we back at the credits? I don't know! Is it all the credits now? I love the narrative. I love the narrative parts of this game. I love the parts where you're talking and you're making those choices. I love that the conclusion was basically that narrative. That talking to Ivan to convince him to actually do it rather than trust the serpent. I don't know what happens if you let that happen. I wonder if there's different endings, different potential endings. Well, assumably there must be. But maybe that's what these are. These are the different bits that have happened. But yeah, the battles in this end section, I think, were in that last section were just really frustrating. And it felt like Ivor being drunk, where did that come from? Like, I don't know where that comes from, and he's just stuck with it all the way through. Is that a bug? Like, I know some of the ability, like, basically, I couldn't use any of Juno's abilities, except for, being next to someone and doing the weaved thingy, the one that gives everyone the willpower. That worked, that worked when I was next to them, but I couldn't do the range, so I don't know if I've just had a really buggy version. And I think sometimes it wasn't clear with what abilities enemies had, or what abilities, what limits there were on some abilities, which I think was a problem with a few of the decisions as well. Is it wasn't clear in the wording of exactly what certain abilities did, and exactly what the decisions were going to be. Some of those were not clear, and I think looking at some of the names of the developers, I wonder if this isn't if this wasn't kind of originally written in English, in the English language, because there are a few parts where the language wasn't quite as clear as it could have been. I mean, I say that I've played a lot of games where I've played a lot of board games where it's written by it's someone who speaks the English language, and it's not clear exactly what it is, or what the rules are. So that's admittedly not just that's not just people who don't speak English. Maybe there are people whose first language is English, and it's clear to them, so they've written it but then it's not clear to someone coming out at it from outside the development group. But yeah, I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed this session a lot more than yesterday's session. Spoilers for when I recorded the last session and this session. It wasn't the best, I would say. It was, yeah. And I don't know if they just wanted to make it really, really difficult in that opening, in the when you go into the inner world. Because, interestingly enough, I found the fight with Bulwark, which assumably is like the final boss fight you're meant to do, I found that a lot easier, personally. Maybe that's just because I was easier. Maybe it's just because I had rested for the 2 days. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure how you get more days. Maybe by making different choices. But I always tried to make the right choices. I think it's also frustrating that, yeah, you have to make a choice. It's like, do you lose? Do you make it harder for your other team to progress by going for the harder choices that aren't slower, that aren't more resting, and then you proceed to, right, it's either harder for your other team to go, because if you don't go for it, you, no, my brain stopped working. Come on. That's a dredge versus... Are we seeing the future now in these pictures now of things happening? Children playing a game from the story. Yeah, so you have to make that decision. But again, it's not necessarily overly clear, because it's not clear how long you have between the areas, because you don't have a question about... you don't have a question... Produced in the state of Texas. Huh. Don't comment on the language barrier. And there's a lot of things where it's like, it would have made more sense if you'd had more an idea of exactly how long it was going to take, because that gives you more information. There was a lot of times where the problem with the decision making was that there wasn't a lot of there wasn't a lot of information as to exactly what the choice even is and what the limits are between the options. Sometimes it's, I think this is going to be what ends up happening, and because you've got that information, and sometimes you don't have that information, and then you have I thought this is what the conclusion would be, or this is what that decision meant, which is the case in a lot of games. In a lot of games, to be fair, because they can't go into this is exactly what it is. Although in some cases they definitely can, they just don't. They just don't go into the detail that it really needs. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed 1 and 2. And towards the end of this one, I found it more problematic towards the end of this one, more frustrating. And it's not even it was the beginning of the Inner Earth section, really. Was where it got frustrating. And I'm sure there's a reason for that. I don't know why. Maybe it's just I didn't make many good choices at those points. I don't know. But yeah, it's the same mechanically for the most part. Well, I can't really talk about the mechanisms. I've talked about them, I think, in the other two games credit stuff. But I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the story, and I think if this were a book, with a definitive ending, I think it would be a good book. Even though it got dark towards the end of maybe everyone's going to die, and it jumps back and forth between Arborang and the group in the Inner Earth, could be a good book. But I think mechanically it started to fall apart at the end, which was sad. It was sad because I've enjoyed the previous games and I wanted to see how it ended, and I've enjoyed it. All right, I'm now having a language barrier. I've enjoyed the ending. I've enjoyed this ending, this conclusion. But I want to see if something else is now going to happen with Ivor. But I just like, no, I've just kind of found it a bit. Yeah, I found it a bit frustrating towards the end, especially with not having too many problems in the previous games with the combat. All of a sudden, to hit like this wall. Well, that was the thing. I'm not a fan of the wave battles, where you keep them for so long, and then here's another wave coming, here's another wave coming, here's another wave coming, and it just felt a bit kind of, have a timer. If it's supposed to happen, have it happen. The problem that happens is if you're really good at the combat, you can just go, I don't want to do that second one, and I'll just keep everyone alive, and then you're in a stronger position in the next battle as well. Whereas what happened to me repeatedly, which is why I think I wasn't a huge fan of the ending, was we ended up in a position where I can't fight out of these guys, so I run out of time. The next wave comes while I'm still fighting the other wave, and because I'm not in a great position, because I've not been able to do as well, I'm now in an even worse position because I'm now fighting even more guys, and now I'm horrifically injured for the next battle. And it feels like, I mean, maybe this is me coming from board game dumb, but there should be some kind of balance in a way so that people who aren't doing as well can still progress. I mean, we made it. We banged our head against a brick wall for a while, but we made it. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that introduction. Of the kind of here's another wave. Here's this next wave, and you've got to fight basically the same number of troops all over again with depleted forces. So yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of it. Yeah, I think they tried to... So it feels a little bit like they tried to change a few things and innovate a few things from the original. And it didn't quite work. I don't think they worked as well. Which is a bit sad because it's kind of brought down my enjoyment of the thing. Alas. I mean, these are just the not Patreon backers, the Kickstarter backers. So I'm not sure if we actually need to see these. I don't have to skip this. Does that skip it? Nope. What about that? Nope. We can't skip the Kickstarter backers. Which, I mean, admittedly, we're almost halfway through anyway. I'm not entirely sure if there's anything else for me to say, though, is the thing. I enjoyed the story. I enjoy the basic mechanisms, but they added some things that I think really soured me. Like, well, principally, it was the wave one, where it's like, oh, we're about to win. Oh, actually, no, there's now the same number of troops as started have shown up for the enemy. And I think, oh, that's it. I think it's because I didn't win. I couldn't swap people around. Because I hadn't beaten that first wave. I couldn't swap people out. Which I think they should have allowed for, so that they should have just gone, oh, okay, well, you still get to send them out. You still get to swap people out now, because otherwise it is incredibly difficult at that point. And I think you should be able to position them as well, because I couldn't position Oddleaf when she showed up. Yes, I'm kind of running out of ideas at this point, and my throat is running dry. So I will let the Kickstarter backers continue. And we'll see if there is another little bit of story afterwards. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But if there isn't a bit more story, thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for watching. Alas, there is no extra narrative bit. I would have liked to have a little bit of a narrative bit after the credits. I know that Ivor's just shown up, but maybe like a little thing with him and Alette actually meeting. I think that would have been nice. Ah, well. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for watching.